Hello, my resilient art sluts. It's Allison Moon, and you are listening to the Artgasm podcast. On today's episode, I have a wonderful conversation with burlesque performer and producer Laika Fox. But before that, just actually a couple of very quick news items. I don't have any news stories to report on today, but the first thing I wanted to share with you is that in all of the gestures vaguely to the entire world, I lost track of a kind of important anniversary. Last week was the 5th birthday of Girl Sex 101, my book that came out 5 years ago and has been doing wonderful things in the world, and I'm very, very proud of my little baby, Girl Sex 101. It is 5 years old, and I can't really believe it. And I would do some sort of sale, except for I've actually been running a sale on Girl Sex 101 since the quarantine / shelter in place / social distancing thing began. So I actually have 15% off everything at girlsex101.com right now. That's the hardcover books, that includes the paperback books, and it also includes all the virtual stuff. So the audiobook of Bad Dyke, the ebooks of all of those things. So if you want to, support your local indie artist and also read more of my stuff, you can do that by going to girlsex101.com/store, and you'll see all the different things for sale. And then the coupon code is Stay Home. So enjoy that, and happy birthday to Girl Sex 101. If you enjoyed Girl Sex 101, let me know. It's one of the things that's really gotten me through some of the darker times as we've been all engaging in some darker times, is having people reach out to me saying that they discovered my book or they recommended my book to somebody who was going through something and needed a sex-positive, trans-inclusive, queer-focused voice in their life. So that makes me feel really good when that happens. So if Girl Sex 101 touched your life, please do let me know. Speaking of people being wonderful to each other through all of this, I just wanted to say thank you to my new Patreon supporters. Patreon is one of those ways in which I can just cover the costs of producing this podcast, which is just very much a labor of love. So if you are inclined to support me in other ways and also get into access to a whole archive of a lot of different kinds of one-off stories, quickies about various art and sex topics, that's the best way to do it. So you can go to patreon.com/artgasm and show your support there. Anything from even, I think now the new minimum donation per month is $3. But if you are willing to part with $3 for good content and knowing that you're supporting an independent artist, that makes me feel oh so good. So to the topic at hand, my interview with Laika Fox. So this is kind of one of those doodaloo moments, and I'm going to take you back to June of 2019, even a more innocent age than right now. And spring is just happening in the Pacific Northwest. I was outside all weekend gardening and landscaping, and it felt so necessary, and I'm so grateful to have access to outdoor spaces. I lived for the past 15 years in very concrete parts of very concrete cities. I lived in Los Angeles, and then I lived in Oakland, two extraordinary cities, but cities that nonetheless were not able to feed my outdoorsy needs. And so my partner and I made the plunge to move to Portland 2 years ago, and it was exactly the right choice because A, I've always really loved Portland as a city, but B, I have big trees and I have a yard and a pond, and I can see I ran into a raccoon yesterday while landscaping. He and I both scared each other simultaneously. Being able to have those random wildlife encounters is actually really, really nurturing to me particularly. So this was the right choice. And one of the things that I loved about this interview was this also took place outdoors in Western Oregon at Sex Geek Summer Camp. For those of you who are longtime listeners, you've heard me talk about Sex Geek Summer Camp before, but Sex Geek Summer Camp is a camp for sex-positive professionals that was created and run by my partner, Reed Mahalko. And we had just moved it to Oregon last year, and it was really special, and I was so happy to have it on the West Coast for the first time. And as it always is, it was an incredible week of brilliant people, passionate people coming together to learn how to improve their businesses and to reach people. And I think there's something really special when you get a bunch of different professionals who are all working within the sex-positive realm. There are sex workers, there are sex surrogates, there are educators that work within school systems, there are independent educators, there are therapists, there are counselors. There are so many different kinds of people who come to Sex Geek Summer Camp, and it's always a really wonderful, nourishing, and nurturing week of businessy brain sex. And last year, the campground was amazing where we had it, and it was so beautiful. And you'll hear it in the interview with Laika. Laika and I are sitting next to a soccer field while the sprinklers are going and just enjoying the just truly splendid start to a summer in the Pacific Northwest. This year, Sex Geek Summer Camp was supposed to happen again at that campground. And of course, because of gestures wildly to the world, that's not happening in real life. But what I think is really great is it is happening online. And what I'm so appreciative for my partner for doing is that it's going to be even more content, realizing that there's going to be a deficit in the ways that people connected at camp. He's added a lot more content. He's expanded the timeline, so it's going to be multiple calls per week instead of just, 10 hours a day of educating. And I'm really excited for this format, knowing that it will help more people find it accessible. As much as I love camping, it's not always accessible to everybody, and it's not always desirable to everybody. So this will be a way for people to enjoy the experience of camp, find colleagues, find accountability buddies, and do a lot of work on your business, which I think is, a really nice thing to do right now to focus on what we want to create in this world. So if you're interested in that, I strongly recommend going to check out sexgeeksummercamp.com. You'll learn everything that there is to know about how camp is going to work this year. I will most likely be educating again. I usually teach something about publishing and writing at Sex Geek Summer Camp, so I'm excited to be a part of it this year as well. So check that out if you're interested. In the meantime, allow your mind to go back in time before all of this went down, when we were able to be outside and frolicking in the sunshine with friends and talking about slip and slides and walking through forests and all the wonderful things. Hopefully some of the ambient noise in my interview with Laika will allow you to feel like you're really there. So without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Laika Fox. Recording. Perfect. Beautiful. Hi, Laika.
Hi.
So we are here at Sex Geek Summer Camp, sitting out in the beautiful meadow, watching sprinklers sprinkle new grass and slip and slides.
Baby grass.
Baby grass. It's true. So Laika, I've known you since, I don't know how long. It's been a bit. Mm-hmm. But I remember one of my favorite memories of you is that I hired you to perform at the Girl Sex 101 release party.
Oh, yes.
With your performance partner. And you did an act that was real special. Real special. Do you remember that act? Can you tell me about it?
It's one of my favorites, for sure. Yeah, that was such a fun event. And also very precarious because we performed on top of a school bus.
Oh.
You remember the stage was like a rickety piece of wood on top of the hood of a school bus?
Oh, shit. I did forget that.
Oh, yeah. This is my closest, near death experience performing.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because it was a very energetic act as well. There's a lot of diving around.
Of the story. Anyway, so it was an act that I do with my good friends, and is that wind okay?
I mean, it'll be windy. We're outside.
Yeah, it's true.
Nature.
Naturey. My good friend and co-producer for the Body Political, Andy Stardust. Mm-hmm. And it's an act that we like to call Rainbow Fisting Magic. And it's an act about queer sex in the style of synchronized swimming.
Fantastic. Yeah, because it was kind of mimey, but very, very, it was very panto kind of style, which was great. But you had the full on swim caps and the very oh gosh, I was going to say Grace Kelly, but who's the
Ethel,
the synchronized, Ethel something. Gosh.
Yeah. Tip of my tongue.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of brain dead.
Oh, Esther something.
Yeah.
Shit. Listeners at home are probably screaming at their devices right now.
Of course it sounds.
Anyway.
Yeah, and it was just interweaving all of these classic synchronized swimming motifs, and then also some tropes and real moments of queer attraction and queer sex, and it ends with us literally pulling rainbows out of each other's crotches that turn into ribbon dancing ones, and then we end with a naked ribbon dance through the audience and claps in a naked heap. Which also felt true to the subject matter.
Yeah, it's true. It was very Girl Sex 101 appropriate.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hope it's obvious to listeners by now, but you are a burlesque performer.
Yes.
This is what we were describing a specifically burlesque act. So tell me a little bit about your experience of getting into the world of this, burlesque and performance.
Yeah, totally. So I am a theater and dance geek at heart, and have been since I was a kid. And after I graduated college from UC Santa Cruz and moved back up to the Bay, because I'm from the Bay originally, and moved up to Oakland, I was taking dance classes here and there, and I wasn't really sure like how to get into performance. I wasn't really looking for it necessarily, but I had a friend who had been taking burlesque classes from a woman named Bombshell Betty, and she was like, "You should do this." And I signed up for a class and just like took to it like
Nice.
a fish to water. I mean, I also did like Rocky Horror in college, so a
Okay.
lot of these things kind of naturally, like
Yeah.
looking back on it, were not a huge jump.
Right.
But my friend was mostly doing it just for the body positivity and having the space to be silly and connect with yourself and connect with your sexuality, and wasn't really into the performance side, but I took the classes and then kind of learned the ropes and then started putting acts together and pitching them to different producers and all that kind of thing, and was just like, pew! Take it off.
And would that fall into the realm of neo-burlesque? I'm not quite sure I understand the designations between them.
Yeah, I mean, like all subcultures, burlesque insists on subculturing itself.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the labels are kind of blurry. But generally, I think when people make the distinction between neo and classic burlesque, and I believe Rosebud talked about this on an earlier episode too, but classic is kind of what we think of with the like traditional bump and grind with the big band music and the feathers and the prom gown-esque looks, feather boas, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I imagine very like Old West Saloon when I think about
Yeah,
that. Or,
totally.
vaudeville.
That
Yeah.
or the feather fans, the Sally Rand kind of thing, which is super beautiful, and lots of people are keeping that memory alive. And then neo is sort of like anything that deviates from that. So it could be like doing burlesque to heavy metal. It could be, doing stuff like what I do, which tends to be more of like social commentary, more kind of political in nature, things that are closer to performance art. Pretty much anything else.
Anything other than what
Yeah.
you think of when you think of classic.
Well, and I think like even using the language of classic versus neo, there's kind of a subtext there, because most of the time when you look at the pictures, like it's a particular body type that was allowed to perform, and like there is a history of people of color in burlesque, but a lot of times that's erased in the mainstream, like unfortunately lots of POC history is in lots of spaces. And so I think people, coming from a mainstream lens, tend to look at like fatter folks performing as like neo burlesque.
Really?
It's like not necessarily
That's so interesting.
like
I mean, 'cause,
their
yeah,
style. Like they could be doing a different, a
Yeah.
classic style, but it's like falling into the
That's wild, because
awful
I think when I
things,
think of the body type that was revered in that era of what I would consider classic, you are looking at the more voluptuous, more curvy, fatter women, and in some ways that I would feel like the skinny women would be more rare to see on stage, even though it's obviously that is completely inverted in our current society.
Yeah, totally.
That's fascinating.
It's all relative. So yeah, and then of course you have the other like subgenres of like nerdlesque, which is again started as like references to comic books and video games, and now has expanded to include basically any pop culture reference, just anything people feel nerdy about. I was just in New York for the International Nerdlesque Festival, which was really great, because when you're performing for an audience that's like really diehard nerds, then you can really go deep into the fandom.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
Cool.
People are all over the place with it, which I love.
That's interesting.
Blank canvas.
Yeah. Well, so you kind of had a nice little segue to talking about your own work that is more political. Like, what does that mean for you? What kind of stuff are you doing?
Yeah, so to me, like one of the things I struggle with in the burlesque art form is that burlesque is already inherently such a political art form. Like, you are getting on a stage in front of strangers, taking your clothes off, like, in a society where people are shamed for whatever the fuck they look like. Are we allowed to swear on your podcast?
Oh, yeah.
I figured. Always good to ask. So, you know, standing up on a stage and saying, like, I'm into what I've got going on, and I'm going to, like, exude that love of myself out to an audience is, like, a super political thing to do, which is awesome. But for me, I didn't want it to end there. For me, you know, the ability to say, like, I can be beautiful in these particular ways that we define beauty, which tends to lean towards European beauty standards, but not always. I can be sparkly, I can be all these things. I can be joyful, I can be silly, I can be funny. That's all really good, but I wanted to explore a wider range of emotion, and explore struggle, and explore trauma, and explore all these different things that also have the ability to heal myself through just allowing other people to bear witness to me in those places, and also inviting the audience to, like, join in that journey and, like, feel healed by witnessing that. And I've had a lot of times where people have come up to me after shows and, you know, just been, like, so deeply grateful that it's like, oh my God, thank you for, you know, I have a piece about domestic violence that's, like, really hard. But that one happens to end with, like, I guess I can just describe the act
spoiler
of it.
alert, I suppose. But
Yeah, a little spoiler alert. It's an act about an abusive relationship in which my character is, like, a 50s housewife, which is a very convenient platform for lots of different messages. And I'm, like, setting the table for dinner and, like, expectant of my, you know, as one would assume, husband coming home. And then as I'm stripping, I'm revealing bruises all over my body, which is really heavy, and the audience goes totally fucking silent. It's really intense. As I'm setting the table, you know, the music's building, and then I sit down to eat, and I've got kind of one of those dome turkey platter things on the table, and then I pull the lid off of it, and it's a head, and then I proceed to eat, you know, what one would assume is my husband's body.
Oh my God.
And I literally, like, consume him and take the power back.
Wow.
Yeah, so for other people who have, like, experienced that kind of thing, it's, like, so cathartic to, like, see that kind of energy on stage. And it's not right for every type of show either.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, in that kind of way, like, when you are either pitching to be part of somebody else's show or when you're curating it your own, like, do you have a sense of, like, oh, I'm gonna fuck with people's heads, or do you feel like, okay, there are certain shows that are more accepting of different, you know, themes, and, like, or do you just kind of, you know, you pitch the act that you want to perform? Yeah,
that's a really hard negotiation, and it's part of the reason I created my own show. Yeah, I think, you know, I used to be of the mind of, well, this producer thinks I'm good, so I'm going to show up and, like, do my shit and not, you know, conform to anyone else's ideas of what this art form should look like. But I've kind of leaned back from that a little bit because I want the audience to, like, consent to what they're seeing. And so if the branding of a show is sexy, fun, uplifting type thing, like, I want to be part of that and, like, support that branding. When people come to my shows, they know that they're going to get, you know, what has been described as a roller coaster of emotion. So it feels a lot better that people are, like, opting into that. But yeah, it's been hard, and I'm glad that I'm at a point in my career where, yeah, like, I know what my value is as a performer, and if it doesn't fit a producer's vision, then, like, wish them the best with what they're doing. But it is really hard because a lot of producers tend to, like, speak on behalf of their audiences, and want a particular look, want a particular vibe, and it's hard to grapple with that, but it just means I've been performing less, which I'm also okay with, because it's not my main jam, it's my side hustle.
Side jam.
So it's my side jam.
So tell me about the show that you created.
Yeah. So, apparently say a lot.
I also make demands a lot. I notice when I interview, I'm like, just say the thing. Tell me about this thing.
Yes, I'm consenting to saying the thing. So the show that I co-produce with Andy, my burlesque bestie, is called The Body Political. We've been doing it since 2015. And at the end of this month, actually, we are going to be putting on a show as part of Pride, as part of the National Queer Arts Festival, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Because we're both queer identified humans. And The Body Political, let's see if I can get our little spiel right. It is a burlesque and variety show confronting social myths about the body through personal stories of resistance and reclamation.
That's great. Well done. Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty much just that. We wanted it to be a variety show. We wanted to bring in lots of different styles of performance. Burlesque is kind of like the root of it, but we try to get storytellers and drag performers and circus and aerial and pole. We've gotten, comedians, stand-up comedians, try to keep it fresh. And it's essentially, people telling the stories of their bodies, of like what it means to be in this world as a person with a body that is experiencing things for themselves, negotiating with like society's expectations based on what they, look like, all that kind of stuff. So people are exploring gender, race, sexuality, ability, disability, like reproduction. We had a really amazing act that someone did while pregnant.
Oh, cool.
About kind of unpacking, this is sort of like the virgin whore sort of complex where women tend to be seen as like sexually active women tend to be seen as like damaged goods or whatever until you get pregnant, which doesn't always come through having sex, but a lot of the time. And then you're seen as this like pristine, angelic, like untouchable kind of thing. And so she did this really great act in like a pink fluffy coat, and it was to like be my little baby, and it was all very saccharine and cute. And then she like goes into like fake labor on stage, and she made a crocheted placenta that she like drops out of her little like lacy nightie thing and just lets out this like bellowing like groan. Awesome. And it was like the least cute thing. I loved it so much. So that's just an example. But yeah, and it's great because like we have this canvas of like you could just bring whatever you're experiencing, and it would fit with our show, as long as it is rooted in your own personal experience, as long as it's intersectional and you're not making statements about a group of people, because no one categorization of people is living the same experience. And yeah, it's been a really awesome experience because we've both gotten seasoned performers who have acts and have been like, oh yeah, this is cool, I can bring this to your show. And we've gotten a lot of new performers who were like, oh, I was kicking around this idea, but I wasn't sure where to bring this act to. And we do our best to support our performers with workshopping. And this year we just started a mentorship program to pair people up if they want like more one-on-one support. It's been great.
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoy about talking to people about burlesque, because it is something that I really appreciate as an art form, but I have very little personal experience with it. And I think Rosebud touched on this on like episode 3 and Bastard Keith as well, on episode 2, around like the ability to surprise, the ability to subvert expectations, and how an audience might be coming expecting titillation or sauciness. And that makes them feel a little safe because we know what it feels like to be gently titillated.
Yeah.
But then to have that titillation turn into something different. Not necessarily something scary, but something just that subverts that expectation of we're just here to watch some pretty girls be pretty. Let's like, what else can we do with that model? Which I think is really interesting.
Well, and the burlesque art form, like you said, is so perfect for that because the act is like changing, right? You're like removing layers, or sometimes you're putting layers on, and so there's just this built-in storytelling where you're like, I think I know where this is gonna go, but I'm not sure, and it kind of breaks that format of like, clothes, lingerie, boobs.
Yeah, and it can be very simple with like, maybe just the music and the costume make you think something different, or the way their body looks underneath the costume is different from expected. But it can also be very sophisticated, and like you're telling a story now, and you've got props and set pieces, and now it is a performance art piece, even if it lasts 6 minutes, which I think is really, it's a really fascinating format for that, because it does combine like butoh and vaudeville and all of these non-verbal performance skills that I find really fascinating and require so much connection with an audience.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny, as you were talking about that and kind of like helping little baby burlesquers kind of on their journey, I've never taken my clothes off on stage for that purpose. I've certainly done demo bottoming for sex ed and stuff, but I did once at Body Storytelling kind of just dip my toe in this really small way. And, I'm not the kind of person who ever besmirches people's versions of healing, but for me, I'm like, I don't think I need to strip on stage to feel healed. But this one story was about me getting a breast reduction and all of my shame around my breasts. And so I'm like, you know what? The only way I can really close this story is by just letting everybody say goodbye to my breasts as we know them. It was right before it was like a week before my surgery. And so I told the story of all of my drama, because I'm a verbal person, so of course I had to tell the story.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just started playing We'll Meet Again and did a very slow striptease, and it was so hard. Like you put me on stage with a microphone, I can talk. That is not...
I tell people the exact opposite. I'm always like, I'll get naked on stage, but do not put a microphone in front of me. So help me God.
It was so funny, and I feel like it's such a common thing. People really know that about themselves, whether they're one or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, it's like, even with storytelling, it's like when I hold for laughs, or when I let a beat really settle, because I know what I had to say, they need a moment with. Very different from, I'm going to take off this strap of my bra and just let it hang on my upper arm and let them behold that before I move on to the next thing. And all of that kind of ceremony felt very odd. And again, it was the first time, and I'm doing it in front of hundreds of people, not having even rehearsed it. I'm like, well, we'll just see. Just take your time. Don't go too fast, and work with the music. But it was a fascinating feeling. And then, of course, during the blow off, when I'm just like topless, wearing pasties, and just having people adore me. And again, not having the microphone in my hand, not being able to subvert it with a joke, not being able to step away from my own anxiety, just really having to stand there and feel what they were giving me and give them back something was terrifying. But I totally got that for the first time when people say that burlesque can be very healing. I'm like, got it, understand it now, thank you.
Totally. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good on you for leaning into the discomfort.
Thanks. I mean, hey, I'm always one to try something new.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially art. I'm like, that looks cool. Let's just see what it feels like on the inside. That's dope. So now you work with Andy. Is Andy where you live now too, or is...
No, she's still in San Francisco, holding it down.
How do you manage that kind of partnership from a distance?
Oh, so many spreadsheets. We're both like super organizational development nerds, so and we have skill sets that complement each other, because my day job is as a web developer, so I have all of our like web stuff kind of sorted out, maybe still learning, and she does a lot of cool stuff, but one of her main gigs is as a bookkeeper, and she's now doing small business coaching.
Oh, great.
And education for women in queer-owned businesses. I'll plug her website, but I can't remember, but maybe I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, well, we can totally.
And so she's in San Francisco, and I'm in Denver now. And it's challenging. I mean, I'm a very like face-to-face person. So that's hard. I mean, I just like miss her. Like, miss you, Andy.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, yeah, business relationships, I mean, they can be just as intimate as other kinds.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, we talk weekly. We text probably daily. Yeah, I refer to her as my business wife. I think that's pretty accurate.
Sure.
And we just kind of have a flow. Lots of spreadsheets and Airtables. If y'all don't know about Airtable, it's the shit. It's like somewhere between a spreadsheet and a database, and it will like manage your life.
Really? Airtable?
The best.
Okay, thanks. I learned something new.
Web-based tool.
Cool. You get an affiliate link you can throw in the show notes too.
I should be getting a discount on their services for the number of people I refer to them.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Like, as a sex educator, I'm like, I've sold so many magic wands and so many womanizers, and I will never see a dime from either of those companies.
Ew.
But that's just fine. I'm doing God's work.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so tell me, is Body Political a touring show? Or, I mean, do you drop into festivals like you said with the Queer Arts Festival?
So, we were born and raised in the Bay Area, because that's where I'm from. And for the first couple shows, we were just there. Then I moved to Denver, and we were like, well, we should probably bring it. We always wanted to tour with it, or at least, bring it to other places. But the financial stuff of doing that and finding venues and all that stuff is a challenge for sure. So last year was the first time we brought it somewhere outside of the Bay, and that was Denver in February. And so right now we're kind of on this do it once in the Bay a year and then once elsewhere. And so, yeah, like I said, at the end of this month, June 2019, I don't know when this is going to air.
It's probably, summertime.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be our next San Francisco show. And then in the fall, we got invited to bring it to Chicago.
Nice.
Which is going to be the first time we're producing it in a place where neither of us live.
Oh.
Which is slightly terrifying. We have a friend, Belladonna Darling, who's helping us, like, on the ground support. So venue coordination, helping us find sponsors and stuff, which I'm very grateful for.
So when you say you were invited in, what does that mean? If you don't, without revealing details you're not comfortable revealing, but how does that work?
So, yeah, either people who have been part of the show or people who have just heard about the show, we get a lot of requests of like, oh, could you bring it to this city? And yeah, let's talk about bringing it to that city. And we're like, yeah, we're down. We just need your help bringing it to your city. And Belladonna, being like the badass that she is, was like, okay, cool. So let's talk dates. Let's talk venues.
Nice.
Let's make it happen.
Nice.
So she basically just followed through, and we were like, we're with you.
That second step's the most important one. We always get that. I mean, I get that all the time. Come teach in blank city. I'm like, I will.
Yeah.
But you need to do some help because I've never been to that city.
I don't just like get off a plane.
Yeah, it's not how that works. So like do a little legwork, and we can totally make your dream come true of us bringing whatever you want us to that city. But the people who live there need to help us out with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. So, I had a question that is somehow slipping my mind. So you've traveled with both Body Political and as an independent burlesque performer. Do you feel like there are different expectations or different cultures in various cities about how they react to not only burlesque, but also your specific flavor of burlesque?
Yeah, I really love traveling to perform. I like when I get invited to perform and I'm actually like getting paid to perform is the ideal, at least to offset costs for that trip. It's one of my pet peeves with the burlesque world, I guess, is that we have a lot of these festivals. Like, it feels like every year another city or another region is popping up with another festival, which are really great networking events, but no one's getting paid to perform. So you're spending all this money to go out there, perform amongst a lineup of like 50 over the course of a weekend. But they are a really good networking opportunity, and sometimes you get to take some classes with the headliners and that kind of thing.
So the networking can be like, now we have a person who has a show in the city and they like what I had to do, so they're going to maybe bring me out to do that. Okay.
Yeah, like networking with the people in that place, networking with other people from other places, that kind of thing. So the festivals are kind of their own thing. And like no disrespect to the festivals, they
But no, I mean,
they're
I think
lovely, but
very
it's just
common
a
in
different
lot of our worlds where it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of free labor. It's nice, and we
conferences,
yeah,
like that
you,
kind of thing.
you can get out a lot of it if you put a lot in, and that's hard to do for a lot of people.
You just kind of have to be like strategic about
Yeah.
what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Well, and Andy and I also teach a workshop that we've developed that kind of forms, some of the coaching work that we do with performers about how to find the story of your body or the stories that you want to tell about your body and how to craft a performance art piece out of that. We actually have someone in the show at the end of this month who found out about us by taking our workshop.
Nice.
And then applied and then is in our show. So
yay.
it's like, I'm going to get so many testimonials out of that person.
That's great. That's great.
So yeah, sometimes if we can like teach a workshop, then that's a really great way to connect with folks. So there's traveling on that side, and then there's just traveling, just kind of as a solo performer.
Is that the kind of thing where you just try and book as many gigs in one city as possible?
Pretty much, yeah, just kind of power gig it. And that's also really fun. I think I almost prefer that because like the festivals are so much like social stimulation and it's very like party,
Right.
which I used to be into, but I'm like, I feel like I've kind of gotten that out of my system, and I'd much rather go to a place, get to know a few people from that place, like spend a weekend with them, do a bunch of gigs. I was just up in Boise. Stellison invited me out there. She's a producer up there, and then some other folks from Salt Lake met up with us there too, and we just like had this really fun weekend.
Nice.
And I had never been anywhere in Idaho, and it was December, and so I have like a Hanukkah act that I do with like a labia menorah and like 5 foot long.
I can't believe I've never heard that pun before. How have I lived 37 years on this planet without ever hearing labia menorah?
It's like a little merkin. I can show you a picture of it.
Fantastic.
And I have like a 5 foot long challah boa that I like made out of pantyhose.
I've seen that. That's why I'm even more offended that I didn't know about the labia menorah joke, because I've seen your challah before. Yeah. That's fantastic.
So like Boise being a place where there aren't a lot of Jews, I think Boise is not necessarily a small city, but it's smaller than
a small city. Yeah.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah,
It's a small city.
Yeah.
But the smaller cities, I feel like people, like audiences, are less jaded about like, oh, I've seen it all. They're just like so delighted and so like, oh my God, you're so amazing, and really like feeds my
Yeah, that's something I've noticed too about kind of sex positive performances in general, is that there's nerves, right? Like going to a smaller city, maybe in a conservative state. But again, like I've performed in Los Angeles and New York, and audiences can be very wonderful and very friendly. And again, a lot of it has to do with the MC and the warm-ups and and just kind of the expectations of the space. But, there also is a little bit of jadedness. Like LA, everyone's an entertainer. New York, everybody, you got access to world-class acts any moment of the day, every day of the year.
4 times a night.
Right, exactly. 8 shows a week. Yeah, it's crazy. And so, I find that really, it's fine, and it definitely improves your chops as a performer, but being able to perform for a place that isn't jaded with people who might feel like they don't even have a lot of the culture that they want in their city, especially if they live in a conservative city or conservative state, that you're the people who can come in and kind of give them what they need from performance.
Exactly.
And that can be so special. And sometimes the audiences can be very nervous. They can be very quiet, or they can be afraid of laughing at certain things or cheering in certain ways.
Yeah.
But once they get into it, I've found that, audiences.
Release.
The release is pretty splendid. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like traveling with the show, like I said, we had only done it in San Francisco and Oakland a few times before we brought it to Denver. I was really nervous about bringing it to Denver because I was still fairly new. I've only been there for 3 years. So I was there for, almost 2 years at that point. And, there was that part of me that was like, I don't know if they're ready. Like, I don't know, am I bringing too much like San Francisco weirdness out here? But it was like so necessary, to bring that. Denver's an interesting place. I'm still trying to get a feel for the vibe, like not just in the burlesque scene, but like the city as a whole. Like it's kind of progressive, but kind of holds back in some ways. But we were kind of strategic with that. We produced it in this place called the Clock Tower Cabaret, which is like right dead center in the middle of downtown, so we could get a lot of foot traffic.
Nice.
And they do a lot of their own promotion as well, which we knew we were going to need their support on. Yeah, and I feel like people were ready. Were ready for it, and there's some folks that are kind of like regulars there, and they came up to me and they were like, "Thank you so much for bringing this. I've never seen anything like this here." The Clock Tower is kind of one of these places that is sort of more on the mainstream. They're branching out a bit more here and there, but it's kind of more mainstream. They get a lot of like bachelorette parties kind of thing. And so it did feel like a risk to bring something more edgy and performance art-y there. So it was nice that like our ticket sales did well, and the audience was really receptive to it. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I think also the way it sounds like your show works is like you really are building empathy because the stories are personal, and you're telling stories. It's not just like, look at how cute I am when I take off my clothes. You're like actually you're saying something very meaningful about your relationship to your body. And so even if you might have a more nervous audience, it's hard not to relate when you say something sincere about your experience of the world.
Yeah.
And that feels like that could create a really nice evening for people who weren't necessarily expecting that, but got something more deep and more thoughtful.
Yep. Had that. It's gone now.
That's fine. That's great. So what do you hope for the future of Body Political?
So I definitely want to take it to more cities. I feel like we're making our way across the country slowly. Definitely want to bring it to more audiences. Next year, we want to beef up our like educational offerings, because right now we just have the one workshop, and we kind of want to see what the opportunities are to collaborate with like other educators that are working in the same kind of vein. And then another thing that we're trying to do with the Body Political, because we like to make our lives difficult, is that we incorporated as a nonprofit last year.
Oh, great.
Because we were just like, we know we want to apply for grants, and it's sort of a combination of like, we want to be paying people above market rate because we feel like people are putting so much emotional labor into these acts that we want them to feel compensated and like valued in that way. Like going right in the Bay Area is about $50
For an act.
And for this upcoming show, we got a small grant as part of the festival, so we're actually paying people $150.
Wow, that's great.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, but still, that's so little considering.
It's so level if you try to do it hourly or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you also think about like the costumes and all of the labor that goes into all of it.
It's just
Wow.
it doesn't pan out, but
but I mean, it's still way better.
Yeah. So we want to be paying people more, so we need to make more money for the organization, and we want to be able to, like I said, like be getting grants and developing our revenue streams beyond just ticket sales, because ticket sales, you're only getting paid kind of on the back end of the process, and that's really nerve-wracking as opposed to going into a show cycle with all the money that you need, or closer to more of the money that you need. So we kind of want to explore that and figure out if maybe there's like some of the workshops here were really interesting about like passive income or kind of creating products. And like, it'd be cool if we could do like digital courses or something like that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, this is why I like this event, Sex Geek Summer Camp, so much, because so many people are in different fields, not just therapists or educators like me. It's people who do sex adjacent work, who do work that might be hard to buy advertising because of the Facebook rules and all that. But and so what us weirdo radical hippie perverts can learn from the info marketing world, and like how can we apply stuff that guys in blazers in the hotel ballroom have been doing for decades, and that technology hasn't really gotten to money. How can we take their money and their best ideas and then apply that to sex positive work? Which is great. And so things like online courses and like different funnels and all that stuff. I find it so daunting, but at the same time, like, we should be reaching more people, and people need us way more than they need another marketing class sometimes. Like they need sexual health. Yeah,
totally. Well, and another part of the work that we've been trying to do is really digging in to like how we're centering marginalized performers. And it's something that Andy and I have been doing a lot of work on, like what are anti-racist and like, you know, other forms of like systems of oppression, our relationships to those things as like two like white presenting, like white-ish humans. Yeah, and I mean, especially because like if our show is about a diversity of identities and like good representation, like we need to be centering marginalized voices. And I've been kind of grappling with like how much of that kind of work I want to be doing in the burlesque community as a whole, because it's something that's I've really struggled with since moving to Denver. Is like the Bay Area is so diverse, and like not without its problems, but just like generally more diverse place. And like in Denver, there's just like so many shows where the lineup is all white people, and I'm just like, and then like you try to talk to the producers about it, and they're like, well, I don't, you know, it's just defensiveness, and I'm like, what if it wasn't about being defensive? What if it was just about like this being a priority to you? And
yeah, that actually reminds me of curating the Girl Sex 101 party, because I knew you, and I knew that I wanted to hire you, and I had seen one other person perform, and I knew I wanted to hire her, and I think there was like, I think I knew I know a bunch of acts, and all the acts that I knew were white or white presenting. I think that there was a drag king act that wasn't all white, but it still was like, this isn't okay. I need to, and I remember I needed to like actively search. And I went on Facebook, and I'm like, I need rad ass POC performers that love doing this shit and want to get paid.
Yeah.
And it was a little scary because we were on a very short deadline, and you know, because the city of Oakland was just stonewalling me in every possible direction, because apparently Oakland is afraid of nipples. I don't know. It was very strange.
No.
Oakland was, that whole thing with the permitting was just bizarre, but that's a whole other story. But I remember like somebody's like, oh, this amazing performer, Camille, you like reach out to her, like she'll have an act. And I'm like, okay. And I like kind of, and she didn't have any website I could go to or anything I could see, but I'm just like, I'm going to take it on faith. And that a bunch of people said, you're awesome. And she blew the roof off the place. She did like clown twerking, and it was so good. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I think she was right before your act, so you may have been backstage preparing.
Yeah.
I think she moved back to the UK as far as I knew last time I checked. But yeah, she was a full clown, like Harley Quinn, like black and white clown. And she did like crumping, twerking, quasi stripping, but I've never seen somebody connect so well with the room and have so much goddamn fun performing. And it became this like, not at all giving myself cookies, but I'm just so goddamn glad that I saw that there was a need, and then this amazing performer got thrust into my lap just because I asked.
Right.
And again, you know, the Bay Area, there are more POC performers, that's true, but like sometimes you have to say like, I actually need this, and I know it feels like tokenization, and I know it feels awkward to have to ask for this kind of body type, because it's not, you know, because I shouldn't have to, you know, put out a call, but like sometimes you have to do some legwork as a producer to find the right balance and to find people that represent who you want to represent.
Totally. Well, and I mean, it's like, oh, hello, bumblebees. Nature.
Nature, we are outside.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like the bigger thing too is that it's like, it's signaling. It's like signaling your priorities, and it's signaling to your audiences. Like, your audiences are diverse. Like, your audiences want to see people that look like them, that they like share an experience with. You know, like And
I think also, like, going back to kind of the sexiness of burlesque, like, the audiences, I think, often are pleasantly surprised by what they find sexy. But again, we've only been fed one kind of sexy. Right. So we think that that's what we like. We think we like the slim and the white and the narrow nose and all the things. But then when we get to see somebody who subverts that idea of what is sexy, being sexy, and having a wonderful time and being very much in their body, like, that I think helps just re-educate a lot of us as to our own expectations of what we're capable of connecting with. Yeah. And I think that's hugely valuable for the white people, for the skinny people, for the straight people. Yeah. Because it helps us expand our own idea.
Check our
our
assumptions.
Yeah, and that
internalized prejudices and things like that.
That makes the world a sexier.
Totally.
That's awesome. So, are there any acts that you are working on now that you are particularly excited about, or you want to share?
am I working on right now?
Recent act.
Yeah. What have I done recently? So I did a Queen show a few months ago, which was so much fun. My friends Parker Go Peep and Brody Danger, some dear friends in Denver, together their production group is called Danger Peep. They put on a Queen show, and it was super fun. It was, Queen's music is just so fun to dance to.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean, big surprise there.
Four different titles that I'd be like, yep, I'll shake my booty to that right now.
Oh my God, right? I know. Trying to figure out which songs I wanted to do was so hard. And I ended up we did a group act to Somebody to Love, which like I almost cried every time we did it. It was just like, ugh. It was like our finale. And then I also did a solo piece to I Want to Break Free.
Nice.
And I was kind of like struggling with what I wanted to do with it. I knew I wanted to do that song because it's just like, you could use it for anything.
Yeah.
Like, what are we breaking free from this time? And I ended up doing it about kind of exploring the often sort of dichotomous messages that are put onto like women's bodies, like as a cis woman, speaking from that experience. And so I would like take off one article of clothing and it would say, be cute. And then another thing would say, but don't be confident, you know? So it was like these things that are like both positive things, but they're kind of often put in like this juxtaposition of each other. And then I took off my gloves, and on the inside of my gloves it said, what is something? I don't know. It was something about like being strong but not too strong, that kind of thing. And actually, like when I was brainstorming this, because it was actually really hard, like it was a weird word exercise to figure out what would be written.
Oh, sure.
Because I didn't want anything that was like negative. Because I thought it was interesting that we kind of pit these things that are both positive things, like be this but not too much this.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was really exploring. That kind of like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, what
like,
does that even mean?
What does that even mean? And then I like would roll down my stockings, and it said be sexy on the outside of my thigh, and then on the inside of my thighs it said but don't be a slut.
Yeah.
So it was like be this but don't be this. And it was really fun, and I workshopped it with my friend Parker because I was just kind of like getting too in my head on it and really stuck on the concept and was trying to figure out like how to embody it. And there was this really great moment where she was like, because I would like run my hands over the words to kind of like feel that connection, and touching yourself is just like always a good time for the audience. So they like feel that like electricity, you know? And she was like, you should slap your thighs.
Nice.
And I was like, oh yeah, I should totally slap my thighs. And so I do this thing where like, spread my legs out because I have the words written on the inside of my thighs that say, don't be a slut. And then I look down and I cackle, and then I like slap my thighs super hard, and then I continue on with the stripping. And then my pasties were made by my friend Laika Fox, who's based in Portland actually. She's awesome. She makes amazing pasties.
Nice.
And they were little like hands giving the finger, which I was like, I had them made. I contacted her about making them custom after the election because I was just I think I'm just gonna need these. Like just like kind of just need some fuck you pasties just in case. So that was really fun. Just kind of like stripping off those expectations.
So my big question that's coming up as you're describing this, like, do you ever just feel the urge to just get on stage and just take off your clothes and call it a day instead of having to come up with these elaborate
super cerebral? Yes I do. And sometimes I do. I do have a few acts that are just like sexy strippery goodness type things, and like as a chubby person, like that does feel inherently political to just be like shaking and jiggling and squishy and whatnot. And sometimes I have like kind of asked myself, like, do I feel, it's kind of this weird irony, right? Like, is exploring these like political topics a way to distract from, like, is my body not quote unquote enough?
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, no, I just want to deconstruct everything. This is what I'm doing in my life. Yeah, exactly. So I try to keep some of those in my back pocket. And then I also I performed with the First Church of the Sacred Silver Sexual.
Nice.
You know them?
Oh yeah, I actually saw. I went to their. I think it was the first anniversary, or it was Bowie's first birthday after he died.
Mm-hmm.
That was a wake. It was intense.
Yeah. Oh, it was like a
fucking
few
great.
days.
Well,
Oh no, it was the year after.
it was the year after. Yeah. That was in San Francisco, and then they had like 3 shows in the weekend. And
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah,
Whew.
it's so fun. So this is a cover band, a Bowie cover band, but they run their shows like a church service. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I remember, right after Bowie died, a bunch of tribute bands started, playing concert. I remember I was at a performance art piece in San Francisco, and then I had tickets to this Bowie tribute show right after. And the performance art piece was trying very to be ritualized and trying to get some vibe going, and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
It was a show that just did not work. At least for me, it did not work. And then I went to this Bowie tribute show, and they weren't trying to do anything other than
Have
play
a good
Bowie
fucking
songs
time.
really well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is my church.
Yeah.
Rock and roll is my church. And I'm
Hell
like,
yes.
and it gave me. I had the spiritual experience that
Oh my
I think
God,
the
right?
performance artist was trying to generate. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
Give me a good guitar lick and a
Oh
bunch
my
of people wailing
God.
into microphones, and I'm there.
They're so talented, and all their vocalists are
Yeah.
amazing. And yeah, so I perform with them. I go out. It's my annual New Year's tradition as we go out and do the first weekend of the year.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's a really good opportunity to just be totally out there, just in my slutty, stripper vibes. And there's just really amazing drag performers, and everyone's costumes are just insane. And you're performing on stage. You have this tiny little box that you can perform in, and people are coming out with costumes that are trailing behind them and everything. And
That's fantastic.
it's real silly, and it's just a very grounding kind of I'm just here, to be one with the music, and the audience is so loving, and it's super fun. So I have a few of those acts, but yeah, like I said, I'm performing kind of less and less these days, which is fine. I mean, I have a family.
Yeah, those they get in the way of things, don't they?
Yeah, I love my little family. But that takes up a lot of my life, and yeah, with producing and working on the show, working on Body Political, takes up a lot of my life, and I have a day job on top of all these things, and maybe exploring a career transition at some point.
Oof.
All the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, it's nice because I don't I love performing, and I love the energy of the audience, and it definitely feeds me in a very unique way, but I'm also glad that I don't feel like I need it to live or whatever, just to be dramatic.
No, but I mean, again, so many of us, we identify so powerfully with the art that we make, and sometimes when we don't do it anymore, we stop feeling like ourselves. So
Yeah.
I think that's a valuable thing.
Yeah,
to
but
talk about.
but in working on the Body Political, it feels like this magnification. If I could perform in one show and make people feel some feels, that's cool. But if I can craft a, I want to say army, but I don't know what the non-militant language is, but an army of, a posse of, badass political burlesque performers going out there and saying some seriously awesome radical shit, then that's just magnifying, and if we're teaching, then that's magnifying even further, and all the things. So it feels like if my end goal is for there to be more radical political burlesque in the world, then that is achieving it.
So speaking of spreading the word more, how can people find you?
So I'm kind of on Facebook, but it's not my favorite thing. My name is Laika Fox, Laika, the space dog. Which is a story for another time, but you can look up Laika the space dog. It's a really sad story. Fox. Laika Fox. It's a pun. Get it. You can find me on Facebook. I'm probably most active on Instagram. Do not slide into my DMs. Shoot me an email like a fucking grown-up.
And if people want to perform or find out when your next Body Political is happening somewhere?
Oh, yes, and the Body Political. So that one is thebodypolitical.com. Same thing on Facebook, on Instagram. If you want to find out when I'm performing, I usually have my calendar on Instagram, on our website for the Body Political. We have our kind of schedule of upcoming shows. Also, the other thing that I'll pitch too for all the performers out there, and like I said, performers of all kinds, so not just burlesque, we do an open casting call for the show, which was very intentional because we want people to feel like there isn't a nepotism to how we book things. And, you know, every show is unique, so we want to look at whatever acts people want to bring us, like holistically, of like how we craft a diverse and representative show. So casting is actually open right now until the end of June.
For the Chicago show?
For the Chicago show.
Nice.
So it might be past. But yeah, get on our email lists on our website. Find out when we're casting for future shows. We do pay a small travel stipend if you're outside of the area where we're... Yeah. Everything. We just want to give money away for people to make cool art.
That's great.
Support people, because financial support is also a very real part of building equity into our work. So
Word. And as just a fun little plug for people listening, Rachel Lark was the very first episode of the Artgasm podcast, and you are in Rachel's probably most famous music video.
Most fun of my life.
Warm, Bloody, and Tender, all about period sex. Dan Savage is in that video. Jamie DeWolf is in that video. Yeah, it's kind of like San Francisco.
Holly Superstar.
Yeah. God, yeah, it's San Francisco, like smut and performer vaudeville like gods are all in that.
Wonder Dave
was
my fantasy boyfriend.
Yeah, that was so, you guys were so good together. It was very Rocky Horror.
It was very, you guys, oh my God, I've never thought about that, but that's exactly what that was.
That was fun. So yeah, check that out, Warm, Bloody, and Tender on YouTube, Rachel Lark, so you can get a sense of Laika's performance chops, so to speak. Awesome. Well, thank you, Laika Fox, so much. This was a lovely chat. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Yay. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Boop. Perfect. And that's it for this week's episode of Artgasm. Thank you, as always, for joining me. If you liked what you heard, please do spread the word. I need you to help me get more listeners to this lovely podcast. So you can do that by sharing any of the links of your favorite episodes on social media and letting people know that you like what I have to say. If you have requests or recommendations or thoughts or feedback, I always welcome that. You can reach out to me at artgasmcast@gmail.com. Again, if you're considering being a patron, I would very much appreciate that. You can go support the podcast by going to Patreon. That's patreon.com/artgasm. You can also just follow me there so that you can see when I post new things, so you can get a sense of what I'm doing. If you're just not quite ready to commit to $3 a month yet, that's totally fine. And in the meantime, reach out, share this, let me know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, all the things. And I will be back next week with a new episode. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.